Civil War is coming out on April 12th, and I recommend seeing it in IMAX or Dolby just because of the sound design. So, to summarize the film, when it comes to Civil War, I want to preface that this movie is really not about the Civil War, well, the Civil War in their universe. In terms of, you're not going to get the politicians giving you an idea of what happened. You're not going to get much of an explanation why Texas seceded, California did as well, and they have an alliance. What happened with Florida, and now them trying to convince the Carolinas to join them in a new nation. This movie doesn't go deep into that. Instead, it focuses on two photojournalists, one named Lee, another one named Jesse, who, between the two, there's a big gap in experience since Lee is a veteran photographer in wars, and Jesse is, I think she's an amateur or newish. They don't say that she's associated with like Reuters, New York Times, anything like that, but who knows, maybe she has a YouTube channel. But point of the matter is, it still is two war photographers, Joel, who's an interviewer, and who comes along with them from New York going down to DC, is a man named Sammy, who is a writer for the New York Times. The four of them have the main goal of going to DC and seeing what could be the fall of the United States as we know it. Joel wants to have the final interview. Jesse and Lee, of course, want to get that magical photo. And Sammy, he really just needed a ride to like Charlottesville or somewhere like in the Virginia area. Now, as you can imagine, with the world, well, not the world, just the United States at war, it's a very violent movie. A lot of things happen. And while I wouldn't say it'll push you to cry, it'll definitely remind you that bullets are made to kill and not just provide a lot of lights and special effects. Which leads to the review section, which, jumping off that whole comment we made, the way that they use guns in this film, it's not meant to just be weapons that anyone can pick up, bang, 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 get a bunch of bullets flying around you and nothing happens. Weapons are made to kill in this film. You're going to see blood, you're going to see people dying because, again, it's focused on the journalistic side of it. So you're going to see Lee, Joel, and Jesse, also Sammy, right there with the soldiers, seemingly of either side, right in the action. And you're going to see people die graphically. And every time a gun goes off, you're going to know that means it's somebody's life or death. And what makes it even more interesting is that it makes it so guns aren't just firing and you're indifferent to it like you would be in any action movie. Guns are going to startle the frick out of you when you hear them. And it reminds you so much that as much as a lot of people might become desensitized to the idea of guns between watching them in films and all that, in real life, if you're not somebody who's accustomed to hearing gunfire and stuff like that, it can be a very scary and startling thing. And it's not something to just see as part of daily, regular entertainment. With that said, what's another highlight for this film is that it really makes you appreciate war journalists because I forget how the saying properly goes, but it's something to the fact that to the victor of war comes not just the spoils, but the pen to write history or something like that. And with that in mind, it pushes you to understand and realize if it wasn't for war journalists giving you the truth, giving you the brutality of what war is, it could be something that a lot of people could be much more easy or maybe not think or care about. But because you get pictures of people who were killed in the streets, because you get pictures of prisoners of war who aren't in the best conditions, because you get to see the fall of different leaders and you see everything that they did up to the point of them being defeated, it reminds you that war should be a last resort or something that many shouldn't even have on the table because it's just nothing but brutality. It's nothing but people often who think that they're a hero doing whatever it takes to defend their property, to defend their culture, to defend their nation. And even if they get purple stars and become veterans and get to be seen as some kind of heroes. What the photographers do is remind you that for them to be this hero, for them to be this person that gets put on a pedestal, more than likely they had to kill somebody. They was involved in the murder of someone. And even if that person was an enemy combatant, that person still had family, that person still had friends. And sometimes in the pursuit of getting that one person, there was a lot of collateral damage, not just in property, but in human lives that sometimes had nothing to do with the conflict, besides simply not looking like somebody who was the shooter's friend or ally. Which leads on to fence topics. One of the main issues I have is somebody who's very much into story, character development, and world building, the three pillars of any film really, is that when it comes to watching Civil War, for the most part, you're a voyeur. You don't really get to learn all about what caused the war, what's happening in terms of America breaking apart. The only thing that you're really told to give you an idea of what's going on and why it's happened is that the president somehow gained a third term, even though the Constitution doesn't allow that. And he turned against the press. And from that point, you just assume that he became an autocrat of some kind. So California broke off, Texas broke off, Florida did. And as all that happens, the Midwest are like, this sounds like a coastal problem. We're not part of this. And it's kind of annoying because the movie's named Civil War, so you're like, okay, I'm going to learn about a future potential fantasy version. Not fantasy version, there's no like dinosaurs or rather dragons, but what I'm trying to say is it uses the idea of a civil war and perhaps a lot of the issues that America has now in order to paint the idea that it's going to present the different ways or the factions that come about, and it never really goes into that. It touches upon it lightly, and pretty much you will spend most of your time just following Lee and her friends as they worked their way from New York to DC, taking pictures of different fight scenes with characters that you're not gonna really get to know or build a connection to. Which leads to the second on the fence problem, which is the performances. Now, I don't want to say anyone gave a bad performance, but I will say that the way that this film is written, the way its tone is, it's very much about giving you a journalistic point of view. There is no biases here. Lee and the rest of them are not heroes. They're not villains. They're simply people who are capturing moments in history, and you feel like you're just along capturing moments of their life. And this isn't to say that you don't learn that Lee and Jesse are from the Midwest, that Joel's from Florida. I don't think we were told where Sammy is from, but what you get to know isn't important because basically these people know each other already, so they're not going to rehash, oh yeah, I went to this school, that school, whatever. I mean, Jessie's the youngest one in there. She's enamored by Lee. She's one of her heroes, so she does let us know that one of Lee's first big photos came from when she was in college, but outside of that, you're not getting a full breakdown so that if anything did happen or that it was any like scare, you would be like ripping onto something fearing that your favorite character in this was about to die. It's not that type of film. Again, it's very much about showing you the horrors of war in order to, as Lee puts it probably better than I can remember what she said, so that that war doesn't repeat itself. If you can see what can happen, maybe you'll make an extra effort to stop it from doing so. If that makes sense. Overall, when it comes to Civil War, I feel like it has enough action moments to appeal to the people who really just wanted to see some shootouts, and for the people who wanted drama, who wanted something that was very cinematic, they get that too. Particularly with the sound design for it. It brings almost a horror movie jump scare vibe whenever you hear, well, not whenever you hear a gunshot, but a lot of gunshots will make you jump startled. And that combination should make it where this is an enjoyable film to watch. But I do believe that a lot of people are going to be frustrated with the fact that it doesn't really break down how the Civil War got started properly, what's going on in terms of the different factions, because we don't even meet one of the leaders for Texas or California or even hear what their name is. But it's definitely one of those films where it's not that strong in terms of character development, world building, and the story is good enough, yet it still somehow keeps you engaged throughout its entire hour and 49-minute runtime.